Hello, friends, and welcome back to our SBT Sutra Studies class. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Venerable Tarpa, and before we begin, let's take a moment to appreciate our handsome community gathered here today. Today, I feel fortunate to sit as a member of this kind community in the safety and security of like-minded friends, sharing this present moment with others dedicated to the cultivation of goodness. Today, I'm grateful for the direction and support that this community provides, a community worthy of my time and commitment, a community where my efforts have meaning, purpose, and are appreciated. Today, I'm thankful for this community of awakening, a place to gain the knowledge and skills to improve my life, a family, a home, and a sanctuary for all of us seeking refuge from the storm. And let's remember, as conscientious practitioners, we must recognize our responsibility to the world, to strive to live skillfully while helping others to do the same, to strive to live in balance and harmony with nature and others, to strive to gain mastery over our minds and embody our true benevolent nature, to expand our hearts and minds, transcending our shared human limitations, to not intentionally harm sentient life or our planet, to maturely accept and embrace the reality of our situation while striving to improve it. Again, welcome to our SBT Sutra Studies class. We are currently studying the Dhammapada. And I always put an R sound in there because I'm used to the Sanskrit pronunciation of Dharma. But properly, in the Pali, it's Dhamma. So this is Dhamapada. Today, we will be covering chapter 13, entitled The World. Okay, with that said, let's get our stuff up, and we have some wonderful instructors. We have a few instructors here to do some reading. Lovely. Pam, would you like to do some reading today? Yeah, good. Okay, we got a whole bunch of people to read. So with that said, I'm going to put this up on our screen. And I thought that this was a wonderful chapter. It seemed pretty straightforward. There's a couple concepts that we're going to want to kind of get to. How about we started with Yoli? Would you like to start with 167?
Sure. Do not follow an inferior way. Don't live with negligence. Do not follow a wrong view. Don't be engrossed in the world.
Thank you. Miss Catherine, 167?
Follow not the vulgar way, live not in heedlessness, hold not false views, linger not long in worldly existence.
Thank you. Pema, would you like to read 167?
Do not follow an inferior way, don't live with negligence, do not follow a wrong view, don't be engrossed in the world.
Hey, thank you, folks. So I think this one's pretty straightforward, and of course, right off the bat, they're asserting that, of course, the Buddhadharma is the superior way, asserting that the other ones are inferior. Don't live with negligence means don't live without mindfulness. Remember, mindfulness is the opposite of negligence. Don't follow wrong views, and don't be engrossed in the world. So wrong views, if you remember, the goal of Buddhism is developing right view, which is the correct perspective, understanding yourself, your environment, how you work, how your environment works, how the world around you works, how to relate to others, and the nature of reality itself. That's right view. So here, and we're always cultivating right view, and we're letting go of wrong views, which should be plural. And don't be engrossed in the world. We're going to be talking about that throughout the next couple verses. But I want to take a moment at this point and talk about something. within the text so far, throughout all the chapters, we've had quite a bit of talk about staying away from inferior people or the lesser. I don't quite remember all the language, but we've been talking about it and how most of us didn't really care for it, that they make quite a distinction or discernment between those who follow the Buddhadharma and those that don't. And they don't paint a very nice picture of those that don't follow the Buddhadharma. And I wanted to comment on the discernment. So a while back, I was staying with a family, and this was a family in America, and they happened to be a very dirty family. Now, I stay with everybody when I'm traveling around the world. I've stayed with people that were such fanatics about cleanliness. It was so difficult to live there. And the opposite. I've lived with people that needed some help, and most of the time I work to help them out, and I do a pretty good job of cleaning myself, and I kind of watch over people, which is a good thing for practitioners, bodhisattvas, and monks to do. Oftentimes, when you invite monks over your house, the teacher will sit around and talk, but the monks he brings with him will usually invade the kitchen and just start cooking and start cleaning. And it's a lovely kind of an attitude of kind of being a mother to the world, taking care of people. But I was with this family, and they happened to be pretty dirty. The house itself was physically difficult to be in, and as much as I try to not mention it and to treat them like everyone else and not to show any difference between them, towards the end they accused me of being judgmental, and so clearly we discern these things. I mean, it's impossible not to, and I did the very best job that I could. I was as patient as I could at not making comments and pretending that it didn't happen. But it made me think about this whole idea of discernment and what we've been talking about. Now, the family, they weren't just dirty, but they, in a lot of ways, they really were the picture of these negative comments that they have about people that don't follow the Dharma. They were people that used a lot of harsh language. They fought a lot. There was great chaos in the home. Absolutely no mindfulness of any kind. It was just a crazy house with dogs barking and everything else. And a lot of swearing, a lot of things like that. So then the question came to me as I'm reading the Dhammapada, where does a practitioner side when it comes to this? We clearly it's discernible being in it, but the Dhammapada tells us just stay away from people like this altogether, and it paints a very ugly picture of them. And then on the other side, we have a more compassionate view, which I think SBT would hold, that we have the ability and maybe the responsibility to try to lift these people up and help them. So I thought that this was an interesting thought. The Dhammapada, it seems to just tell us to stay away from those people. But my question to all of you is, do we have a responsibility to try to help? And what happens when you get accused of being judgmental, where you're not necessarily judgmental, you're just not physically able to have that much patience to be with those kind of people? Any thoughts?
I think we do have a response. Oh, I'm sorry.
Jennifer? No, please, Jennifer.
No, I was going to say, I think we do have a responsibility to help people to a certain point. And you can offer that help and try to lift people up and be there for them. But then it also gets to a point where you've done what you can, and that's when you need to probably walk away.
And that sounds very wise. Yeah, it's a spectrum, isn't it? Yeah, we have to walk that line.
Mike?
Catherine? Oh, David? Sorry, Catherine. Everybody else is jumping in. I can't see anybody. So, David?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be a matter of how confident I was in my own character at the time, because hanging about with with people who are pretty rough or violent and things like that, it does affect you. So I would need to feel that I was in a fairly confident and powerful place in my own way before I think I'd give a lot of attention to trying to help somebody in that sort of situation, to be honest.
And maybe that's the point of the Dhammapada. They're thinking of the practitioner and warning them away from keeping bad company, yeah.
I think one of the things for myself, just in the nature of my work and the people in my team, is that we actually have to sometimes confront situations like that. And it's just about not putting our own judgment, both at a professional level, but also personal level, not putting our own judgment on it, but actually standing back and looking at it from a point of view of somebody's hoarding, for example, which means having a lot of items built up in the house that not only is it health and safety fire risk, but also it's a mental health condition that's recognised as that. So it's what help the person needs. But then sometimes you also just get people who don't care, and it's often because of their young age and they're just not bothered. So it's quite difficult, and sometimes we have to obviously enforce the occupancy agreements, etc. So it can be quite difficult because sometimes you have to make decisions I don't personally agree with, but I just try as best as possible not to be judgmental, but it's a challenge. It's a constant.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. It might be your turn, Catherine.
I think it's a really fine line, isn't it? And all I could say is you would have to take each situation on its own merit. And the problem I have is trying to work out whether I'm being judgmental in a kind of egoistic way or whether I'm being discerning in a caring way. And sometimes all I can do is feel that rather than think it. But yeah, people have different ways of looking at it, and they may be quite happy as they are. So it depends on how much heart. If it's a harmed, then that would maybe make me do more than if it was two adults who could do something but have made the decision not to. If that makes sense. So each situation is different.
Oh, thank you. What I really liked listening to was the compassion in everyone's answers, that everyone saw this in a more complex way, that this is a spectrum, it depends on the situation, but that we all thought we have a bit of a responsibility to try to help. It seems like that's been lacking in the Dhammapada so far. And I wonder if this shows that humanity has really grown. You have to think about some of the material in this Dhammapada could actually be from the Bronze Age. And so far, the Dhammapada seems very binary, very black and white. Avoid these people and do this, where we all seem to see the gray in the middle of it. We see the spectrum. This has been lacking so far in all of the verses of the Dhammapada. There doesn't seem to be that middle way wisdom that we're used to hearing in the Dharma. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that throughout the text. Good. Neil, you feel like reading one? You want to read 168?
Yeah. Arouse yourself. Do not go heedless. Observe the good ways of the Dharma practice. Act in accord with the Dharma, and you will rest easy, both in this world and the next.
Oh, Yoli, would you like to read 168?
Arise, do not be heedless, lead a righteous life. The righteous live happily both in this world and the next.
And Pema, would you like to read 168?
Rouse yourself. Don't be negligent. Live in the Dharma, a life of good conduct. One who lives the Dharma is happy in this world and the next.
So I don't think this needs any commentary other than the fact that they're, they're referring to rebirth, that you're happy in this world and the next. You could say that we're happy in this moment and the next moment. But rouse yourself, I like that. In one of our prayers, we our prayer on I can't think of what it is, but we have this verse that says, be energetic, be strong, be energetic. And it always, that's a big part of the Dharma practice that I think people lose track of, that the Dharma requires an energy. And when you're choosing teachers, it's always recommended that you have a teacher that has energy, and a positive energy, of course. But I always like that aspect. Catherine, would you like to read 169?
Practice the good Dharma. Never do what is harmful. Act in accord with the Dharma, and you will rest easy, both in this world and the next.
And Neo, how about 169?
Lead a righteous life. Lead not a base life. The righteous live happily, both in this world and the next.
Okay. And Yoli, would you like to read 169?
Live the Dharma, a life of good conduct. Don't live a life of bad conduct. One who lives the Dharma is happy in this world and the next.
Oh, that's lovely. I don't think that requires any commentary. The Dharma is that great stuff. I'll read one. Here we go with 170. Those who view the world as if it were like a bubble or like a mirage will not be seen by the Lord of Death. Pema, 170.
One who looks upon the world as a bubble and a mirage, him the King of Death sees not.
Oh, Catherine, 170.
If one sees the world as a bubble, if one sees it as a mirage, one won't be seen by the King of Death.
Oh, great. So to clarify, we defined the King of Death a while back. So the King of Death is actually samsara itself. It's our own afflictions. It's our own human limitations. That's what the King of Death is. It is living a habitual life where we're not able to exercise free will. So it's samsara itself. And then being freed or not being seen by the King of Death is a euphemism for nirvana itself. One thing I wanted to share in this one was, let me see if I could call it up. 1 second, everybody. This comes from the Diamond Sutra. Now, remember that the Dhammapada is older. The Diamond Sutra comes from the Mahayana, and it's a few hundred years later. But it takes that thought and takes it a bit further. And this is a very famous part of the Dhammapada. This is how to contemplate our conditional existence in this fleeting moment. And conditional existence means a life dealing with, again, all our afflictions, all our limitations, all the problems that we have. Conditional existence is unenlightened existence. And when we say that, when we become enlightened, where our life isn't dictated by so much of our problems and our afflictions, and we could call that unconditional existence. samsara, nirvana is often said to be a non-conditional state. So, but they go on to say, like a tiny drop of dew or a bubble foaming in a stream, like a flash of light in a summer cloud, or a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom, or a dream, so is all conditioned existence to be seen. Now, to clarify that, the Buddha isn't saying that existence is those things. It's saying that this is the way to look at life. And so the Buddha often would say that life is, or samsaric life especially, is dreamlike. But the Buddha never says that life is a dream, which is much closer belief related to Hinduism. Some Hindu groups believe that life is a dream in Brahma's mind. And one day when Brahma awakes, everything disappears, that we're all in Brahma's dream. So to be clear, the Buddha doesn't posit that life is a dream or foam or anything else. He's really talking about the impermanence of life in this. He's just talking about how everything is like a flickering lamp. It's just moment upon moment. And everything is impermanent. Everything is a dynamic process in a state of continuous and constant change. So in the verse, they're saying that, let me pull it back up again, that if you can imagine the world like that, if you see the world as impermanent, as everything changing moment to moment, you're not held by afflictions and these other things. This is right view, and this is what liberates us from samsara. So I wanted to share. Does anybody have any questions about that? That's a pretty heavy topic. Another perfect explanation by Tenzin Tarfa. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Hey, we're on the 171. Pema, would you like to start us off? Come.
Look at this world, which is like a glittering chariot of the king. Okay, let me try this again.
Sure.
Come, look at this world, which is like the glittering chariot of the king. Children are attracted to it.
After king, it's kind of like a period. They use these separators to separate the sentence. Yeah, it looks like it should be king children, but it's not.
All right, the third one's a charm, right?
Yeah.
Come, look at this world, which is like the glittering chariot of the king. Children are attracted to it, but not those of fine discernment.
Sorry I gave you one so hard to read. That one was tough. Yoli, would you like to read one?
Come, behold this world, which is like a decorated royal chariot. Here fools flounder, but the wise have no attachment to it.
See, again, they're talking about non-Dharma practitioners as fools, and I don't like that language. And, we're up here. Catherine, would you like to read this one? You can start up here. It's on 2 pages.
Come, look on this world as a beautiful royal chariot. Fools flounder in it, but the discerning do not cling.
Thank you. So they're talking about excuse me. Royal chariot is an image. The beautiful royal chariot is an image for just all the glamorous things in the world, the shiny diamonds and gold, and Trump's mansion, whatever you want to talk about. And so they're saying, don't cling to this, don't flounder into it. But not those. So people with fine discernment aren't drawn into the guise of all of these things. The fools love it, but the wise have no attachment. What I found interesting in the last one here is that they talk about but the discerning do not cling. So here they're kind of asserting that that these things aren't necessarily a problem, but to be discerning and don't cling to them. And that's my belief on it. I've often said here that the problem in the world aren't things, it's our relationship to those things. A big shiny chariot, or maybe in our words, a big shiny car, a fast car, that's not good or bad. It has no problems at all. It's our relationship to that car. If you're the kind of person that must have that car so you can show off to all your friends, and you work every day so you can afford that car and everything else, that's clinging to it. But if your friend has it, asks you if you want to take it for a ride, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I believe that the idea is that we had this question, Carlos posted this question on our chat groups, and the idea of our senses and sense pleasures. And in a lot of the old sutras, the Buddha's talking about to move away from your senses and your sense pleasures, and to guard them, so there's a few different kind of interpretations of those. One of them for Buddhaghosa in the 3rd century, the BC, that the Buddha, he kind of has a darker view and less compassionate view of the teachings, and this is a very Theravada view, and he tends to have that heavier feeling, that darker kind of impression that you should just not look at anything that's sensually pleasurable, and to guard yourself from that. But I think that, and many people, including Stephen Batchelor, were saying that they believe that this is kind of a presentation that was meant more for monks, where monks are supposed to look at all of these things in a negative way, including like looking at the human body in a negative way, seeing the body as this horrible, festering thing, and using that as an antidote for keeping your vows. But I don't believe that was the original message. And for the Mahayana, they have a different view. The Mahayana has more of the view that these things aren't a problem. It's a relationship to those things. It's that it's the clinging that's the problem. It's not the things. For the Dalai Lama to drive in a fancy car is never a problem, because he doesn't have any attachment for anything like a fancy car. Anyways, I just wanted to share that. I think I went on too long. Okay.
Tarpa, I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Which view is it, or whose view is it? I was reading something the other day, and they were talking about that they have this view that you're supposed to envision yourself almost as like a god or a completely enlightened being, and like imagine yourself as that, and then go through the world in that state.
That's tantric teachings from Tibetan Buddhism, and it's also in Hinduism. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's the first of the tantric teachings. And we have 172. Neil, would you like to read one? I don't want you to fall asleep.
Yeah. Whoever has been negligent, but later becomes vigilant, is like a moon which frees from clouds and lightens up the world.
I like this one. Yoli, would you like to read 173?
He who by good deeds covers the evil he has done illuminates this world like the moon freed from clouds.
And Pema, would you like to read 173?
Whoever replaces an evil deed with what is wholesome illuminates the world like the moon set free from a cloud.
I thought this was really pretty. I see it in two ways. One of them is that I think I see it as just anyone who's walking the path and is practicing virtue helps to illuminate the world. But secondly, I saw it as the beauty of someone who through hard work able to transform themselves and change from a person that wasn't very mindful into more of an awakened being. There's just a natural beauty in that. But that's just my.
Papa?
Yeah.
I've put in the chat I think I've put in the chat. Or maybe I haven't. In recovery circles, there's a I'm going to try again. I'm waffling now. There's a quote, but it's actually 172, and it says it's a different reading of it, but it says, "He who formerly was reckless and afterwards became sober brightens up this world like the moon when freed from the clouds." So it's the same kind of idea. It's somebody who's managed to turn their life around, but carelessness is another translation of it. He who was formerly careless and afterwards becomes sober brightens up the world like the moon when freed from the clouds. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorites.
Isn't it lovely? Yeah, absolutely lovely. Yeah. So, yeah, but I still see it being both ways. One of them is just that person glowed, they're radiant because one thing is that they know the darkness of the suffering of the world, and they've come out of it, and they seem to shine, right? That's one that I had. Thank you, Catherine. That's lovely. Catherine, would you like to read 173?
Whoever has done harmful actions but later covers them with good is like the moon which, freed from clouds, lights up the world.
Am I not mistaken? It's just about the same thing as the other one, isn't it? Okay. Yoli, would you like to read 173?
He who by good deeds covers the evil he has done illuminates this world like the moon freed from clouds.
Oh, Pema 173.
Whoever replaces an evil deed with what is wholesome illuminates the world like the moon set free from a cloud.
Thank you. They seem a bit repetitive. Let's move on to 174. I'll read one. This world is shrouded in darkness. Here, only a few can see their way free. These few birds escape from the net and fly away to the heavens. Neil, 174.
Blind is the world. Here only a few possess insight. Only a few, like birds escaping from a net, go to realms of bliss.
Oh, I like that. Yoli, 174.
Blind is this world. Few see clearly here. As birds who escape from nets are few. Few go to heaven.
I thought this was really pretty. I also like that they're talking about clarity here, because I always believe that the idea of nirvana and samsara are just synonyms for confusion and clarity. That nirvana, awakening, it's just clarity, right? Seeing the world clearly, having right view of our true nature and the true nature of reality. And anybody here in the Sangha feel like birds escaping the net? I relate to that. Yeah. I feel sometimes like I'm flying a bit above the rest. Not that I'm better, but just flying above the rest. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty. Catherine, would you like to start us off with 175?
Those with magical powers try, like geese following the path of the sun, but the steadfast pass from the world altogether after conquering Mara and his host.
Oh. Neil, would you like to read 175?
Swans fly on the path of the sun. Men pass through the air by psychic powers. The wise are led away from the world after vanquishing Myra and his host.
Very nice. And Yoli, how about 175?
Swans travel the path of the sun. Those with psychic powers travel through space. The wise travel forth from the world, having conquered Mara and his army.
So this one's great, and this one demonstrates how the Theravada themselves, as much as they like to say how grounded they are, they have a good amount of magic in their stories. And so it meditation, particularly the jhana meditations or calm abiding taken to its highest level, that psychic powers are available. And some of them are mind reading and seeing the future. And one of them is astral projection, being able to travel around. And boy, I wish I could do it because I'd save a fortune in flights. The other thing we have here is conquering Mara and his enemies. So Mara is often thought of as the devil, incorrectly thought of as the devil in Buddhism. They really don't have for evil in that. But Mara is actually our afflictions and our limitations, our own. Some people think of Mara as the ego and all of our negative aspects. Our sense of our exaggerated self, exaggerated sense of self, and his enemies would be. Mara is said to have an army, and the army, including his daughters, and so that's what we're conquering. So in so the wise travel from the world, having conquered. So the wise travel beyond rebirth and reach enlightenment after conquering Mara and his enemies. So you could say that Mara and his enemies is samsara itself, and that it's the opposite of nirvana.
Can I ask very quickly?
Please.
When we look at Mara, am I right in saying, in terms of the Buddha, when the Buddha was moving towards enlightenment, the idea that he could become a ruler of countries, of nations, and this great religion, what that actually really means is him looking within himself, and the Mara being what you've just explained.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. So Mara, modern scholars believe that Mara would be the Buddha, aspects of the Buddha that he has to give up to become enlightened. So, and of course, narcissism, egotism, those kind of things. Like, yes, the Buddha has a group. He's a popular individual. He could become famous and do all these other things, but instead he chooses to reach enlightenment. All of that egotistical kind of aspects of us. Well said, David. Brian. Oh, let's go on. How about Yoli read 176?
Those who tell lies, those who transgress but a single precept, those who scoff in enlightenment, there is no harm they will do.
They will not do.
There's no harm they will not do.
Yeah. Catherine, I'm sorry, what are we on? 176. Catherine?
For a liar who has violated the one law of truthfulness, who holds in scorn the hereafter, there is no evil that he cannot do.
Pema, 76. Oh, I'm sorry, it's this one right here.
175.
170, well, it's 76. They put the number at the bottom on this one.
For people who speak falsely, who transgress in this one way, and who reject the world beyond, there is no evil they won't do.
And again, a pretty harsh assessment of somebody that's not a Dharma practitioner. But it's interesting, they single out truthfulness in this so clearly. And of course, it's one of our refuge vows as well as vows in precepts and other vows as well. And then reject the world beyond. Generally, I think we can just say they refute the Dharma and its principles, its belief in rebirth and those kind of things. And they're saying that these kind of people don't have anything to do with them. They're just evil in every way. And I'm sure, I don't believe that to be true. Like many of you, I have some good friends that are pretty good at telling white lies. And though they're not Buddhist, they're still wonderful people. Catherine, would you like to? Oh, how about Neil read one? 177, Neil.
The greedy will not find their way to heaven's realms, but those who delight in giving the doctrine will find joy in the life to come. It is the fool who does not see the good in giving.
Thank you. Pamela, 177.
Truly, misers fare not to heavenly realms, nor, indeed, do fools praise generosity. But the wise man rejoices in giving, and by that alone does he become happy hereafter.
Beautifully done. Yoli, would you like to read 177? It's on 2 pages here.
Okay. Fools don't praise generosity. Misers don't go to the world of gods. The wise rejoice in generosity and so find happiness in the hereafter.
So as the last verse talked about truthfulness, this one is related to generosity. The world of God. So traditionally, Buddhism has a cosmology of actually 3 realms. There's the desire realm, there's the form realm, and there's the non-form realm. But in the desire realm, which is the world of samsara, there's 6 realms, and it starts at the bottom with hell realms, ghost realms, animal, human, fighting gods or demigods, and a god realm. So traditional Buddhism believes this, and all of the traditions do. As far as I know, the Theravada, the Tibetan, Zen Buddhism, traditional practitioners all believe in this. Modern secular Buddhists believe that this kind of trickled in from other traditions, other religions, because a similar view is shared by Hinduism and Jainism. Not exactly, but very, very close. And so the idea is that depending on your actions in your life, you can be born in all of these different realms. And of course, the higher the realm, clearly the better. The God realm, they're not gods in the Western sense of the world as creators of world systems. They're devas. And so they're just beings that live in with great pleasure. They live a very high life of pleasure. But they're still trapped in samsara, right? So even these gods in the scriptures say they come to the Buddha to try to find a way out of samsara. So very much unlike the gods of the West. According to Buddhism, Buddhas are the greatest entity that can exist. Nothing is more powerful than a Buddha. No gods or devas or anything else is at the level of a Buddha. So that's quite interesting. And then this is the praise of generosity, that of course, generosity is probably the most asserted practice in all of Buddhism. And, in simple ways, we think about generosity as giving to the temple or helping the poor. But the higher levels of generosity come into the Mahayana path and the Bodhisattva. The idea that the Bodhisattva, everything he does is for the benefit of others. He's awakening himself. Everything he does is for that goal. So it gets to the point where the Bodhisattva believes that every breath he takes, every bit of food he eats, everything he does, since his one and only goal is to achieve awakening to benefit others, they're all acts of generosity. So everything the Bodhisattva does is an act of generosity. He lives a generosity lifestyle, a life of complete virtue. So that's at the highest level. And of course, Buddhism asserts that the practice of generosity leads to a great life. Yoli, would you like to read 178?
Greater than ruling an empire or going to the heaven realms, greater than having universal powers, is the fruit of entering the stream.
Thank you. Catherine, 178.
Better than sole sovereignty over the earth, better than going to heaven, better even than lordship over all the worlds, is the supermundane fruition of stream entrance. That was a hard one.
It was a tough one, yeah. And Miss Pema?
Absolute rule over the earth, going to heaven, supreme sovereignty over all worlds, the fruit of stream entry surpasses them all.
Oh, isn't that nice? A couple of things we want to cover here. So this reminds me of a wonderful Zen poem, if I can remember it. And it said, better to be a meditator sitting at a mountain stream than being emperor of the world, you know? And I could really see that. Boy, the problems of being emperor of the world would be, and how peaceful it would be just to be a simple meditator. But so here, what they're saying is greater than all the things you can imagine in this world or others, including universal powers. Now, that's something that Hinduism used to talk about, like the tantric teachings initially was to become kind of a universal magician, or that you could have power over the entire universe. But what they're saying is better than all things is to be entering the stream. I'd like to take a minute and explain to you what stream enter is. Gil Frasdale gave a really nice explanation of what that is in the text. This comes from a note from verse 22 in his text, and I'll just read it here. Stream entry is the first of the four traditional stages of awakening. This is in the Theravada tradition. The Mahayana have a different system called grounds and paths. So stream entry. So of the four traditional stages are stream entry, once returning, non-returning, and the arhat or arahant, depending on how you pronounce it. I think the difference is Sanskrit and Pali. People attaining any of these stages have the experience of nirvana in common. Forgive me. The stages are distinguished by the degree of which the experience of nirvana frees a person from the fetters or afflictions and limitations that bind one to the cycle of rebirth. An arhat, a person who is fully awakened, is liberated from all of these afflictions, so he will not be reborn again. A non-returner is free from enough attachments that he or she will return to human birth, will not return to human birth. Rather, he or she will be reborn in heavenly realms in which to complete the process of liberation. A once returner retains enough attachment to be reborn as a human one last time before attaining final liberation. They call it Da Chamba in Tibetan. While the stream enterer retains the most attachments, that person is said to have entered the stream of Dharma that will inevitably lead to final liberation within 7 lifetimes at most. I love it when they make it very specific. Sometimes they'll say seven lifetimes. They'll say 7 years, 7 months, and 7 minutes. And oh, how did they get to that? That's crazy. So a couple of things about stream enterer. I used to think it comes from the Theravada school, so it wasn't something that I was brought up on. I was brought up on this idea of grounds and paths, which is a little bit different. But a stream enterer, it sounds like somebody who takes refuge, right? And you start your Dharma path, but it's not. It's a much higher degree. As we mentioned here, it's someone who's tasted nirvana, and according to Theravada scriptures, it's someone who has had an experiential realization of right view, right? So we talked about right view. It's understanding our true value, our true value, true potential, true nature, and that of the true nature of reality. But we do that now in study, right? We're all studying it. We're going to study a lot about right view in our series starting tomorrow, Skillful Living. So it's one thing to study right view and talk about it like I am now, giving you a basic idea. That's a conceptual understanding. But to actually experience it non-conceptually, that's a whole nother thing. And some schools assert that that's the beginning of stream entry, when you actually have a non-conceptual realization of the true nature of yourself and reality, which could be said is having a experiential realization of the Four Noble Truths as well, as some of our Buddhist students know what that means. So I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of an account of what that was. And that's our last verse for the chapter. Does anybody have any questions about that last verse or any of the others? Kind of fascinating chapter, I thought. Had a little bit more interesting things in it.
Tarpa, I put the thing in the chat. Does the stream entry happen when somebody dies? Or is
No, this is well before death. All of these can be before death, or let's say all of them are before death. After death, they have a thing called paranirvana, and that's different. So, but the arhat you can become within this life, or within a few lives.
Yeah, I've been reading this in the same time as I was reading the first 2 chapters of the Skillful Living paper, and I hope this isn't too heretical, but I found the Skillful Living paper so much more useful than Dhamapada. I mean, I like the poetry of the Dhamapada, but I mean, I found the Skillful Living, found it richer, more charitable, more personally useful, and also more challenging than the Dhammapada. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, I don't agree at all with you. I'm joking. I wrote it, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind.
I don't care that you wrote it. That's still true.
Yeah. It's this idea of, again, from a conversation we had in our chat group, in our Dharma group, that the SBT view is based on a thing called skillful means. So this is a major topic in Mahayana Buddhism, but the idea that we see the Buddha as a skillful teacher who was able to teach different levels of teaching, different ways to different audiences, so those audiences could grasp the Dharma. So teachers are expected to do the same. We can read the Dhammapada, we can read all of the sutras, but the teacher is there to kind of put it into words that the audience can consume easily. And so that's where skillful living comes from, is me knowing my audience, putting it in a way that relates to the audience itself. So I'm hoping that I succeeded at that with skillful living, that it's really, really accessible for people to practice right away. And I think it is, yeah. Would anyone else like to compliment me? The floor is open. Thank you, David. You're very kind.
That's just true.
Well, I can't comment on my own, but like we mentioned, I hadn't read the Dhammapada for many years, and I remember liking it a lot more back then. I'm not enjoying it so much this time through it. I see a lot of the flaws that are in it, and more it gives us, it validates what the mission of SBT, because it really seems like, this is needed. Our humanity's conscious is growing in, and we really need to reinterpret some of this. Would anybody else like to share? I bet Catherine would. She's just waiting.
I was just looking up when I went on that secular Dharma course. I was just looking up what they said about stream entrance, and it was quite interesting. They said that stream entrants have 4 qualities, and these are confidence in the Buddha, faith, confidence in awakening, confidence in the Dharma, faith, confidence in the practice, confidence in the Sangha, faith, confidence in the community and in our spiritual friendships, and also noble virtue, usually explained as the 5 precepts. And he said,
please.
Yeah, sorry. He
Please.
said, I understand stream entry as the condition of being committed to awakening, committed to the practice, committed to the community, and committed to one's development.
So that's lovely. Definitely a secular approach. That's not necessarily what the traditional idea is. Traditionally,
no, that was on the secular course.
Yeah,
that was the secular.
I understood. Yeah. Traditionally, they talk the opposite. They talk about it's the abandonment of doubt, and what they mean by that is that when you've had a taste of nirvana, in this small capacity, an experiential taste of nirvana, there is no longer any doubt in your mind of if this path works and the benefits of it, of Buddhadharma Sangha of the 3 jewels. Yeah. Thank you, Catherine. Very useful. Yeah, theirs is much, the traditional is a bit more magical. They really, stream enter is a big deal. This is a high attainment, not a simple one. It seems like people like to downplay it. I think I can't remember the tradition, it was Chan Buddhism, but the stream enter they see is just basically someone who's taking refuge and coming in. But in the Theravada, oh no, this is a high attainment. A lot of us, for Theravada, a lot of them would be happy to achieve that in one lifetime and then be reborn to do some of the others. Yeah. Lovely. Anybody else? I'm going to shut this off. We are running a little bit late. So how about if I get to our conclusion, if nobody has any pressing comments, or I'll let you all read the chats on your own. And I like to kind of just conclude. And again, I pretty much just go through them all and try to rephrase them and highlight some of the important ones. So do not follow the teachings that are morally questionable, abusive, or violent. Work to transcend your attachment and business in the world. And I think we all know of these various teachings and religious groups or cults that are morally questionable, abusive, and violent. Even some of the main religions, if you read through the scriptures, can be quite violent and abusive. I don't want to name any, but we know some that are really, really abusive and violent towards women. Energize yourself. So important. This is a key thing to practice. When I wake up in the morning, I really try to feel that, come on now, let's be energetic today. Energize yourself, be mindful, practice well, and act in accordance with the Dharma, and your goals will be realized in this life and future lives, or in this moment and future moments. The world is a bubble. Seeing this, we transcend the samsaric world. Again, this is right view, understanding that the world is like a bubble, a flash of light, foam, a dream. It's like these things. This helps us to transcend samsara. It also, it gets us to look at things that everything's not so reified, that things aren't so solid when you look at it like that. When you realize the impermanence of everything, you realize that things aren't as important as we make them out to be, usually. And that helps us transcend the samsaric world. Accept the beauty of life, but don't cling to it. Those who change their ways and learn to embrace virtue light the world with their goodness. The world is of confusion. Few have attained clarity. Through clarity, we are liberated. Those who are not truthful, who are not spiritual, they behave in unpredictable ways. Generosity is the path of the Dharma and liberation. The greedy will never taste liberation. Lastly, greater than all worldly riches is to enter the path of the awakened ones, one who has irreversibly entered the stream to lead to liberation. They talked about stream entering. I always assumed that it was from the analogy to cross the stream, to cross the river to enlightenment from one shore to the other. But in the text, it talks about stream entering is a little different. Stream entering is to enter the river that leads to the ocean of nirvana. So I was surprised it was a different analogy. So, and I would like everybody to remember that the Sutra teachings are meant as a practice instruction. So in order to get the greatest benefit, we need to engage fully with them, utilizing the three great objectives of study, contemplation, and meditation. Your work this week is to discover how these teachings apply to your life, transform from words on a page into living Dharma. Next week, we'll be moving on to chapter 14 of the Dhammapada, the Buddha. So let's end today's class with our altruistic affirmation. May all be healthy, may all be prosperous, may all be well. May all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is a source of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Thanks for joining me, everybody. It was a fun class. Very interesting chapter, huh? So tomorrow we're going to be beginning our Skillful Living teaching series. I'm super excited about that. And we'll see you for meditation tomorrow morning. Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tapa.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Anytime. You too. Anytime.